Wendy, do you have time tonight?
Huh? Oh, yes, I'm free tonight, as long as it's not too late. I don't have any other plans or commitments, so I should be able to meet up with you. Though I do need to make sure it won't interfere with any other appointments I might have later.
Oh, perfect then. That works out just right. You see, I attended your cooking class for the first time today. It was an interesting experience, and I wanted to talk to you about it.
Oh, thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. I know that I'm still just starting out with teaching, so there might have been some moments where I wasn't as polished as I'd like to be, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. How did you feel about the class? Was there anything you enjoyed, or perhaps anything I can improve on?
Well, actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to let you know that I felt you should really experience what truly exceptional cooking is like. You might not have been exposed to this type of cuisine yet, and I thought it was important for you to broaden your horizons.
Oh, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Could you explain a little further?
Let me get straight to the point. From what I saw in your cooking class today, I have to be honest with you. I think it's quite presumptuous of you to be running a class with cooking skills at that level. I'm not trying to be rude, but the dishes you prepared didn't seem to reflect the level of mastery I think you're aiming for.
Wait, what?
I understand this might sound harsh, but please understand, this is just my personal opinion. I don't think you're a bad cook or anything like that. I just believe that for someone to be teaching others, they need to have reached a level of expertise that's undeniable. And to be honest, I don't think you're there yet. But I also know you might not be willing to accept that, so I thought it might be better if you come to this realization on your own. Sometimes the best way to learn is through experience rather than words.
Are we going to a restaurant, or is there another place you have in mind for tonight?
Well, not exactly a traditional restaurant. What I want is for you to experience true high-level cuisine. And I've already chosen the place where we'll go. It's a bar located in a quieter area of the downtown district.
A bar? Is that really the kind of place that serves exceptional food?
Oh, I see what you're thinking. Just because it's a bar, you might be dismissing it right away. But let me tell you, this place is not just any bar. It's a hidden gem. It's a place known only to those with a refined taste, and you won't find any information about it online. It's not the type of place that relies on word of mouth or social media to attract attention. It's for people who truly appreciate good food.
Wait, is it really okay for me to go there? It sounds a bit mysterious, doesn't it?
Of course, it's perfectly fine. I think it will be really beneficial for you. Growing up in a certain environment can shape your palate and cooking skills, which is why I think it's important for you to experience what true cooking can be. Rather than just telling you what I think, I want you to experience it yourself. That's the only way you'll truly understand the difference. I'll wait for you outside, so once you're finished with your class, we can meet up and head there together.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Are we really going to go to that place?
Knowing her, I'm almost certain she has some hidden agenda, and I'm not sure we should trust her intentions.
Well, she's a paying customer after all. As long as we keep her happy, she might continue to come back, and that's good for business.
You've grown up so much. You've always been like this, haven't you? With your charm and ability to captivate people, especially men. It's no wonder you've always had attention.
Let's not get into the past. It's irrelevant now. Because of my experiences, I've learned to deal with people who look down on me. It's nothing new.
Still, be cautious. What's this about a hidden bar with exceptional food? I've never heard of anything like it before.
I haven't heard of it either, but I have a few ideas about where it might be.
I also have some guesses, but honestly, are there really any places nowadays that don't have an online presence?
That's exactly what's bothering me too, but I'm going to check it out anyway.
And by the way, are you sure you want to go back to that part of town? I thought you had decided to cut ties with the nightlife scene.
Well, I don't mind strolling around the area. If I run into old acquaintances, it might be awkward, but I'll handle it, don't worry.
I see. All right, just be careful. If anything goes wrong, don't hesitate to contact me. I'll be there to help.
I won't need to call you for help, but thanks. It's comforting to know you've got my back.
Of course, we've known each other for a long time. You can always rely on me.
Excuse me, Tammy, are you okay? It's been quite a while since you mentioned you were going to the bathroom. I was starting to wonder if something had happened to you.
Oh, I see. You were concerned, weren't you? I actually left a little earlier than expected. I didn't want to waste any more of my time there. I had to get going for other things.
Wait, what? You left? Why would you just leave like that?
Well, I didn't feel like studying anymore. I didn't think it was necessary, and I had other things I needed to take care of. So I left before anything else happened.
I see. That's a bit unexpected.
But more importantly, how was the food? You mentioned before that you were confident in your cooking skills, and I wanted to know what you thought about the food here.
Yes, it was quite good. The food was well prepared, and I really appreciated the recommendation for this place. The restaurant itself was very nice.
Oh, really? It was good, huh? Well, it seems like your taste in food is, let's just say, not exactly refined.
Excuse me? What do you mean by that? You told me that this was a place serving exceptional dishes. Are you trying to say something about my taste?
No, I'm just testing your taste. And let's be honest, you failed. I can't believe someone who runs a cooking school would praise frozen food like that. It's honestly laughable. I think it's time to let the other students in your class know what kind of low-level instructor they're dealing with.
Frozen food? Wait a minute, what exactly are you trying to say here?
Yes, everything you ate tonight was frozen. And not just any frozen food, it was the cheapest kind you could find at the supermarket. It's practically laughable.
I don't understand. Why would you do this?
I joined your cooking class today, and honestly, I was shocked. The level of your cooking was so low, it was unbelievable. I thought to myself, how could anyone learn from someone like this? So I decided to prove just how low your standards really are. And I did that by serving you frozen food disguised as gourmet dishes.
This is ridiculous. I never said I'm perfect, but I also never claimed frozen food was the best. It can be good if prepared properly. You don't have to mock it.
Oh, I get it. You're making excuses now. It's cute, but let's move on to the next topic. How about the bill? It's time for you to pay, don't you think?
What? Why should I be the one to pay?
Why? Because I gave you a valuable experience today. That's why. Don't tell me you expected me to treat you. How typical. You come from such a poor mindset. It's honestly kind of pathetic.
No, that's not what I was expecting. Okay, fine, I'll pay. But you're sure this is it, right? This is the end?
Yes, exactly. Now let's settle up. The total is $30,000.
Wait, what? $30,000? Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious. $30,000. What, are you not familiar with the cost of something like this? I guess you've never been to a place like this before, huh?
This doesn't make any sense. I thought you said that this was a reasonable place. Now you're telling me it's $30,000? Is this some kind of scam?
Even if it were a scam, you're still responsible for paying. You were the one who followed me here after all. And now you've got to pay up, or else I'll have to get the people in the back to deal with you.
The people in the back? What kind of people are we talking about here?
Oh, I have plenty of connections, you know. My family is one of the richest in this town, so I know all sorts of people in various circles. People who can make sure you pay what you owe.
This is extortion. You're basically admitting to running a scam, and that's fraud. You are breaking the law.
I'm not doing anything illegal. If anything, it's your fault for getting caught up in this situation. You should have known better than to follow someone like me. I'm not going to apologize for anything.
This is insane. Why are you doing this? Why would you go to such lengths just to get back at me for something?
Oh, I'm not doing this for any personal reason. I just wanted to show the other people in your cooking class what kind of instructor you are. You don't deserve to be teaching anyone anything about cooking.
I can understand you disagree with me, but that doesn't give you the right to do this. There were better ways to handle this.
Better ways? I'm doing you a favor by showing you the truth. You're too deluded to see it, but at least now you know what kind of cooking you're offering. Maybe next time you'll think twice before teaching people such low-level skills.
This is unbelievable. I can't believe you're going this far just to prove a point. I'm just trying to help others and share what I know. This is not the way to handle things.
Well, if you're done complaining, how about you pay up? $30,000 isn't going to just disappear.
$30,000? What is this? Is this a joke?
No, it's not a joke. $30,000. You really have no idea what you're dealing with, do you?
This is extortion. I am not paying this.
Oh, you're not? Well, you might want to reconsider. You see, I know some people who can make sure you pay one way or another. You don't want to find out what happens if you don't.
You're really going to threaten me like this?
It's not a threat, it's reality. You see that bartender over there? He's part of a gang, and if you try to run, things are going to get very ugly for you.
You really think I'm going to be intimidated by you?
I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm just telling you what's going to happen if you don't pay. It's your choice.
Okay, fine. What do you want me to do?
Just give me the $30,000. I don't want to waste any more time here. I have other things to do.
I can't believe this is happening.
Believe it. Now hurry up and pay. Remember, this could have been avoided if you had just known your place.
You are truly heartless, aren't you?
Oh, I'm just being realistic. You should have learned to be more careful.
I can't believe this. I don't even know what to say anymore.
That's the point. Now hand over the money.
I still can't believe this.
Well, you better get used to it, because this is the reality you're facing now.
Angie, I am really sorry to cause you trouble. The situation is exactly as I told you over the phone earlier. I managed to talk to the bartender, and I found out that the person running this bar is actually a local thug.
I see. And what can you tell me about this thug?
You're not going to believe this, but it's Bruce.
Bruce? That guy's back here? Seriously, does he have any sense of courage, or is he just plain stupid?
Well, if the mastermind behind this bar is really him, then this should be an easy job.
Right, so can you get Bruce here? Honestly, I was thinking of bringing a few people along for backup, but if it's Bruce, I can handle him by myself. It should be enough.
Got it. I'll find a way to drag Bruce out here. Angie, what's the situation on your end? How's it going?
I've got Bruce. He's locked in the trunk of the car right now. When he saw my face, his face went pale. He looked completely terrified. As soon as he saw me, he tried to run away. But if he really wanted to escape, he shouldn't have come back in the first place. Well, it's not like he's the kind of person who could survive out there on his own. Honestly, if he was going to come back, he should have at least done something worthwhile with his life. Instead, he's running a scam bar like this. It's such a cheap and petty operation.
This is the same guy who borrowed money from people to open a club, only for him to shut it down in a month and run away, right? He's always been this small-time, cheap kind of guy. People like that don't change easily.
Honestly, if he had just started paying back the money bit by bit, we would have never had to get involved in this mess. But because he ran away, it just complicated everything.
It's actually a bit surprising that after 5 years he managed to return to town.
Well, I heard it straight from him. He said he came back to pay the money he owed, but in reality, I think he just thought he could grab a chunk of cash from this scam bar. And if he got caught, he would have said he was just coming back to repay his debt. If no one found out, he would have just pocketed the money.
I see. Well, that makes sense. So what's the plan now?
Well, for now, we're going to leave the bar alone. I had Bruce tell the bartender to make sure that Tammy gets a proper send-off. I made sure of it.
Thank you so much. I really owe you one. I said I wouldn't need help, but I guess I was wrong.
It's no trouble at all. For me, it's kind of like cleaning up the trash in this town. Now, go take care of things with Tammy. You've got everything under control now, so you don't need to worry.
Understood. I'm on my way. Thanks again.
Well, I wonder if the bill has been settled yet. The fact that they haven't contacted you means you're probably still throwing a tantrum, huh?
Oh, I've already left the restaurant. The waiter told me it was fine and I didn't need to pay.
Huh? What do you mean, what happened?
Exactly what I said. I'm relieved, actually, because I can't afford to pay $30,000.
Is this another one of your usual lies? There's no way they'd let someone like you slip through their fingers. You're probably shaking like a little puppy, aren't you?
No, actually, I'm already on the train heading home. If you want, why don't you give the waiter a call?
Huh? What's going on here?
Or perhaps you could try calling Bruce.
Eh?
Oh, right. Bruce can't take any calls at the moment, can he?
Wait a minute. How do you know about him? Did he visit from time to time?
Well, I've had some dealings with him in the past. He left town 5 years ago, but I was shocked to see him back.
What are you saying? He's been in this town?
He's not just here, he's from this town. But more importantly, how do you know him?
Know him? He's just an acquaintance.
An acquaintance, you say? I've heard he's been bringing victims to his scam bar. Do you really think someone would assist in criminal activities just because they're an acquaintance?
So, what's Bruce doing now? I've been calling him, but he won't pick up. What does it mean that he can't take a call right now?
Instead, why don't you tell me about your relationship with him? Though it seems like the answer's already been spilled by someone else.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
Right now, Angie is with him. Apparently they're reminiscing and Bruce has been quite talkative about the current situation. For example, he mentioned having an affair with a woman.
Who? What?
I don't care if he's having an affair, but to choose Bruce, it shows you have poor judgment. He's a worthless man who can't even pay back his debts.
Explain yourself properly. What's going on?
Bruce borrowed money from a certain gang in this town. With that money, he started a club, but he went bankrupt in just a month due to his incompetence. He ran away with a huge debt.
So, he stole from the gang? Yes, exactly.
5 years later, he came back to town thinking this time he could succeed with his scam bar business. He thought he could pay back the gang if they found him.
He used to run a securities company in London, right? And now he's come back to run a gang?
Typical of Bruce to lie like that. London, a securities company, he probably picked it up from a movie. And no, he's not a gang member, he's just a small-time thug.
You said Angie is with him. What's her role in all of this?
Bruce owes money to the gang Angie was once part of.
Eh?
That's why when Bruce saw Angie's face at the bar earlier, he ran away without a second thought. He came back to town, but is still such a coward.
Wait, Angie's gang? What do you mean?
Angie retired a while ago, but she was an executive in one of the local gangs.
An executive? But she's a woman.
Angie was a legend in this town. She's a woman who beat down anyone who underestimated her.
Is that so? Then what about you? What's your connection to him?
I used to be a hostess in this town. Bruce was one of my regular customers back then. He was a troublesome man who would always run away without paying. He once invited me to join him when he started his club, but I didn't trust him, so I turned him down politely.
Wait, so what's happening now?
Angie's already secured Bruce. He's going to face some serious consequences.
Serious consequences? Then what about me?
First, you need to settle your affair with Bruce. It's best to be honest with your husband.
What?
Then you'll need to clear up your involvement in the fraudulent activities. You were involved in a business run by an antisocial group, so your excuses won't stand.
No, that's not it. I didn't think it was a scam. Yes, he said he was part of a gang, but that doesn't mean a gang is problematic if they're not involved in crime.
I see. So you think $30,000 was the correct price for the service?
Yes, that's right. I don't think it was a scam.
That's strange. You said it was the cheapest frozen food from the supermarket. So are you claiming that $30,000 was the appropriate price for that service?
No, that's...
You were testing me, weren't you? You pretended it was high-end cuisine, but it was just cheap food. You knew that it wasn't high-end. If that's the case, your argument doesn't make sense.
Ugh!
Also, you've got quite a reputation in this town. I've heard you racked up quite a bill at the host clubs.
How do you know that?
If you live here, you'll hear things. You may think you're rich, but you're probably struggling to pay your own bills. That's why you got involved with someone like Bruce. He pretends to be something big, but he's just a small-time scam artist.
What? You're no better. You're running a crappy cooking class while hanging around with gangsters.
Feel free to say what you like, but Angie is my close friend. I won't let anyone talk badly about her. I'll tell your husband about your affair with Bruce.
Wait, why would you do that?
Because you're the one who started this fight. You tried to charge me $30,000. This isn't some little argument, is it? Your parents have already cut ties with you, so I don't need to contact them. Now, all that's left is to gather evidence of your involvement in fraud and take it to the police.
Wait! I get it now. I was wrong. I was so frustrated. I used to run a cooking class too.
I know, but it went under, didn't it? That's why you were frustrated, so you tried sabotaging me. How pathetic.
I'm sorry. I really am. Please forgive me. At least don't tell my husband.
Sorry doesn't cut it.
What is this? I'm the victim here too. If I'd known what kind of person Bruce was, I would have never gotten involved.
Even if that's true, you're still at fault. After all, you followed him like a fool when you knew it was wrong.
Fine, I'll admit it. I've been living in denial for far too long. But what do you expect me to do now? You've already dragged me through the mud, exposed all my secrets. What am I supposed to do with myself now?
That's the thing, isn't it? You didn't want to face the truth until it was shoved in your face. Your life, your decisions, it's all been one big act of pretending things were fine when they clearly weren't. And now you have to deal with the consequences of that.
What do you know about my life? You don't know anything. You think you can just show up and pass judgment? Just like that, you are the one with the moral high ground?
No, I don't have the high ground, but at least I have the integrity to admit when I'm wrong. Unlike you, who keeps lying to herself and everyone around her. I'm not perfect, but at least I don't pretend to be. You've been lying to your husband, living a double life, running with people like Bruce, pretending you're too innocent to understand what's happening.
You think you're any better? You've done things too, haven't you? You've been involved in more shady dealings than I care to admit. And now you stand there lecturing me?
You're right, I'm not perfect. I've made my share of mistakes, but I've always owned up to them, and that's what makes the difference. It's never too late to change, but you have to face reality first. You've been living a lie, and I am just showing you the mirror so you can see the truth.
I didn't want it to end up like this. I thought Bruce would be different. He told me so many lies, but I believed him. I trusted him, and now I have nothing to show for it. Nothing except for the wreckage I've caused.
Well, you're not the only one who's been lied to. Bruce has been lying to everyone, and the only reason he's been able to keep his head above water is because people like you let him. But now it's your turn to stop enabling him. You need to make things right, starting with your husband.
I can't tell him everything. Not everything. He'll never forgive me.
Well, don't worry about that, because like I said, your husband already knows about everything. I reported the incident to the police. It didn't take long for the authorities to get involved. Both Bruce and Tammy were arrested, and they were immediately held accountable for their actions. The court decided that they were responsible for the damages caused to the victims, and as a result, they were ordered to pay hefty compensation fees. It was a decision that would haunt them for a long time, and as expected, the financial burden was overwhelming. It was hard to believe how things escalated so quickly. Bruce, once a man of confidence, now found himself in a position where he had to pay back a massive debt. Tammy, the woman who had always prided herself on being able to manipulate others to get her way, now had to face the reality of the situation. Both of them were thrust into a world they had never imagined, a world where their actions had serious consequences. The debts they now carried weighed heavily on their shoulders. Bruce, unable to pay off the damages through traditional means, was forced to take on grueling physical labor. He had been introduced to this type of work by Angie, a close friend of mine, and it was a job that demanded not only his time and energy, but also his dignity. The work was relentless and the conditions were harsh. He had to endure long hours, often in excruciating physical pain, just to make a dent in his enormous financial responsibilities. As if that weren't enough, Tammy's situation was no better. In addition to the debts she'd accumulated, she was also required to make payments to the local businesses and, most notably, to her husband. The divorce had been ugly, and the court had ordered her to pay alimony. It wasn't easy for her to come to terms with the fact that she now had to pay for her mistakes, both in terms of money and her personal relationships. The alimony payments were a constant reminder of the damage she had caused, and Tammy found herself struggling to keep up with the demands of her financial obligations. It was ironic, really. Bruce and Tammy, who had once been so certain that they were invincible, were now in the same boat. They were both working under harsh conditions, trying to pay off their debts, and it was clear that they weren't happy about it. The strange thing was that despite their dire circumstances, they were still together, working side by side at the same physical labor site. They had been forced into this situation, and there was no way out. Initially, I thought that maybe, just maybe, there was a silver lining to their predicament. I thought that being together might bring them some comfort, that the shared experience of hardship might allow them to reconnect and find a sense of solidarity in their suffering. After all, they had once been a couple, and in times of hardship, people often turned to those closest to them for support. However, as time went on, it became clear that my hopes were misplaced. Bruce and Tammy were blaming each other for everything that had happened. They were no longer the loving couple they once were, but rather bitter individuals who resented each other for the situation they found themselves in. Their relationship had deteriorated beyond repair. They were now locked in a cycle of mutual disdain, and I could see that they were no longer able to tolerate each other's presence. It was as if they had become strangers, each one blaming the other for their downfall. I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness for them. It was painful to watch. I had once hoped that they would learn from their mistakes and that they would grow stronger and become better people because of the hardships they had faced. But it seemed that instead of finding redemption, they had become even more embittered, more bitter toward each other and the world. Their relationship was now in tatters, and it seemed that they had no intention of trying to fix it. I had hoped that they would eventually reconcile, that they would find a way to move forward and rebuild what they had lost. But it was clear that they were trapped in their own bitterness, and I began to wonder if they would ever be able to escape it. In the meantime, I had moved on with my life. I was still attending cooking classes, and I found that they brought me a sense of fulfillment and joy that I hadn't experienced in a long time. The atmosphere in the town had become much calmer after Tammy's disappearance, and the peace that had settled over the area gave me a sense of relief. I could now go about my day-to-day life without the constant fear of running into trouble or dealing with the chaos that Tammy had caused. I had also managed to maintain my friendships with Angie. Despite everything that had happened, our bond remained strong. Angie was someone I could always count on, someone who had been there for me during some of the most difficult moments of my life. She was the type of friend who would drop everything to help you, and I truly appreciated her loyalty and kindness. However, I also noticed that Angie had developed a certain level of concern about me. She had always been a pragmatic person, someone who lived a relatively quiet life, free from the drama and chaos that seemed to follow me around. Because of this, I could sense that she was always a little worried when things went wrong. Whenever something out of the ordinary happened, she would ask me if I had gotten into any trouble. It was almost like she couldn't believe that I had been able to avoid trouble for so long. At first, I didn't think much of it, but over time I began to realize that Angie was genuinely concerned about me. She was protective in a way that I hadn't fully understood before. I think part of it came from the fact that her life had been so stable and uneventful. She had never been in a situation like mine, and I think that made her worry even more. In a way, it was a bit amusing. Here I was, someone who had been through all sorts of challenges and difficulties, and yet Angie seemed to worry more about me than I did about myself. I would often laugh and assure her that everything was fine, but deep down, I knew that she was only asking because she cared. I sometimes wondered if Angie wished she could experience some of the excitement I had gone through. Not that she would ever admit it, of course. She was far too sensible to admit she was curious about my past, but I could see it in her eyes. That flicker of curiosity when we talked about my experiences. She might have been too proud to admit it, but I knew that part of her longed for the kind of life I had lived. Still, despite her occasional concern, I could tell that Angie truly valued our friendship. She would do anything for me, and I knew that I would do the same for her. Our bond was strong, and it was something I could always count on, no matter what. Looking back on everything that had happened with Bruce and Tammy, I realized that life often doesn't go the way we expect. We make decisions, and sometimes those decisions lead to unexpected consequences. Bruce and Tammy had made their choices, and now they were paying the price for it. But even though I felt pity for them, I couldn't ignore the fact that they were responsible for their actions. No one forced them to make the choices they did. As for me, I had learned from my own mistakes. I had faced the consequences of my actions, and I had grown because of it. Life had given me some tough lessons. But I had come out the other side stronger and wiser, and while things weren't perfect, I had learned to accept the flaws and imperfections of life. Now, as I continued to enjoy my cooking classes and the peace of the town, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the people in my life, for Angie, for the lessons I had learned, and for the chance to move forward. No matter what the future held, I knew I was ready to face it. Looking at the situation from a more reflective standpoint, I can't help but wonder if things could have turned out differently for Bruce and Tammy. In a way, they had both been trapped by their own choices. It was clear to me now that neither of them had understood the weight of their actions until it was too late. They had allowed themselves to be swept up in the moment, driven by desires that blinded them to the long-term consequences. In a world where impulsive decisions often lead to irreversible outcomes, they were now facing the full force of their mistakes. Much as I might sympathize with their plight, there was a part of me that couldn't quite excuse them. I had made my own mistakes in the past, but I had learned from them, even if it had taken time. The road to redemption wasn't easy, but it was always there, waiting for those willing to take responsibility for their actions. Bruce and Tammy, it seemed, had been too stubborn to admit their faults, and instead they clung to the idea that they were the victims of circumstances, when in reality they were the victims of their own decisions. It was frustrating to watch. I had seen people in my life go through similar struggles, but they had managed to rise above them, learning and growing in the process. It was hard not to feel disappointed when I saw how Bruce and Tammy handled their situation. They had been given the opportunity to change, to make amends for their wrongdoings, but instead they had only allowed their bitterness and resentment to fester. Their inability to take responsibility for their actions and own up to their mistakes seemed to be what was holding them back to move forward. On the other hand, my life had become more peaceful, albeit not without its own set of challenges. Despite the quiet of the town and the relatively calm pace of my daily life, I still had moments of doubt. I wondered whether I was truly on the right path or whether I was simply hiding from the bigger issues in life. It wasn't that I regretted my choices, but rather that I sometimes felt as though there was more for me to experience. I wasn't content to just go through the motions of life, attending cooking classes and spending time with friends. I had always been someone who craved meaning, and there were still days when I felt like I hadn't really found it. That being said, I couldn't deny the importance of what I had achieved in the past year. There had been a sense of healing in my life since I had distanced myself from the chaos that Tammy had brought into the town. It wasn't as though I was completely free of worries, but the absence of the constant tension that had once loomed over me was undeniably a relief. I found myself waking up each day with a sense of clarity that I hadn't experienced in a long time.